"You're my husband now," said the Apache woman after the cowboy saved her from the gang. The sun was beginning to sink behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In the small town on the edge of the Apache reservation, the streets were quiet, and most people had already returned to their homes. The wind carried a faint smell of dust and dry grass. It was the kind of evening that felt calm, but for those who knew the town well, the calm often hid danger. The Apache woman walked briskly down the narrow road. Her steps were careful, and her eyes constantly scanned the shadows. She had lived on the edge of the reservation for years, and she had learned to trust her instincts. Still, there was a heaviness in her chest tonight, a sense that something was not right. She had been running errands in town, trying to gather supplies for her small home, and now with the sun dipping low, she knew it was time to return. Unseen by her, a group of men had been watching from the corner of the street. Their presence was quiet, almost ghostly, but their intentions were clear. They were part of a local gang that had caused trouble in the town for months. No one spoke openly about them because fear kept most people silent. But tonight, their eyes were fixed on the Apache woman, and their plan was to intimidate her. As she turned the corner, one of the men stepped forward and blocked her path. He was tall, with a hardened face and eyes that carried menace. "Evening, miss," he said, his voice low and threatening. "You look like you're all alone. That's not very safe." The Apache woman stopped immediately. She knew that tone, that way of speaking. She had seen it before, and she understood the danger. "I'm fine," she replied steadily, trying to keep her voice calm. "Please, just let me pass." The man laughed, a sound that made her skin crawl. "But, oh, I don't think so. We just want a little chat. You see, we don't like people walking around alone, thinking they can ignore us." Fear pricked at the edges of her mind, but she refused to show it. She had survived many difficult situations in her life, and running now would not make things better. She backed up slowly, trying to keep distance, but more men emerged from the shadows surrounding her. Panic threatened to rise, but she clenched her fists and focused on staying calm. Suddenly, a strong voice cut through the tension. "Hey, leave her alone!" All eyes turned to see a man riding quickly toward them on a horse. He was a cowboy, tall and broad-shouldered, with a determined expression. His hat was tilted slightly and his boots pressed firmly in the stirrups. He rode with confidence, as if he had done this many times before. The gang hesitated, unsure of how to react. The cowboy's eyes met theirs with a sharp intensity, and there was no doubt about his courage. He slowed his horse to a stop in front of the Apache woman, creating a barrier between her and the men. "I said leave her alone," he repeated, his voice steady and unwavering. The tallest of the gang sneered. "Psst, who do you think you are? This isn't your business." The cowboy didn't flinch. "It is now. Step back or you'll regret it." For a tense moment, no one moved. The wind blew dust across the road, and the setting sun cast long shadows that danced over the scene. The Apache woman watched silently, her heart pounding. She didn't know this man, but there was something in his presence that gave her a strange sense of safety. He wasn't just brave. He seemed to understand the danger they were in, and was willing to face it head-on. Then, in a sudden burst of courage, the gang leader stepped closer, cracking his knuckles. "You think you can stop us? Psst. We don't care about anyone." The cowboy didn't back down. In a swift, practiced motion, he dismounted and positioned himself between the Apache woman and the gang. He moved with a calm precision, showing that he was not only strong but also intelligent in handling dangerous situations. I said leave, he repeated, his voice firm. The gang exchanged glances, sensing the resolve in his eyes. They had underestimated him, and now hesitation crept into their ranks. One of them tried to make a move toward the woman, but the cowboy stepped forward, blocking him with a strong arm. The tension was almost unbearable, each second stretching longer than the last. Finally, the gang leader growled in frustration. "This isn't over," he said. "You haven't seen the last of us." With that, they retreated into the shadows, leaving the street empty and silent once again. The Apache woman let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her legs felt weak, and her hands trembled slightly, but relief washed over her. She turned to the cowboy, her eyes wide with gratitude and amazement. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come." The cowboy nodded, brushing dust off his coat. "It's all right. You're safe now." She studied him carefully, noticing the calmness in his eyes and the strength in his posture.
You didn't even hesitate," she said.
"Most people would have run the other way." He shrugged, a small smile appearing on his face. "Maybe. But I couldn't just leave you there. It didn't feel right." There was a pause between them, filled with the quiet sounds of the town. The distant call of a bird, the rustle of the wind through the trees, the faint clatter of a wagon in the distance. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Bess. She didn't know him, and he didn't know her. But somehow, a connection had formed in the midst of danger. "Where are you headed?" he asked, his tone gentle now, no longer commanding. "To my home, on the edge of the reservation," she replied. "It's not far, but it's not safe for me to go alone after tonight." "Then I'll walk with you. Or ride, if you prefer." The Apache woman hesitated, unused to accepting help so freely, but the sincerity in his eyes convinced her. "All right," she said. "Thank you." As they moved down the street together, she noticed small details, the way he handled himself, the care in his movements, the quiet confidence that made him seem larger than life. She felt a sense of protection she hadn't felt in a long time, and though she didn't fully understand it, a small spark of trust began to grow. They walked in silence for a while, broken only by the soft sound of their footsteps and the distant hum of life in the town. Best. She glanced at him occasionally, noticing the lines on his face, the weathered look of someone who had seen many challenges and faced them with courage. She realized that he wasn't just strong physically. There was a kindness and thoughtfulness in him that set him apart. Finally, they reached the small path that led to her home. The sun had almost disappeared behind the hills, leaving only a faint glow in the sky. She stopped, turning to him. "This is as far as I go." "Thank you. Again. I can't tell you how much this means." "Be careful from now on. If anything happens, don't hesitate to call for help." "But you're not alone." Her lips curved into a small smile, a mixture of relief and appreciation. "I won't forget this," she said softly. As she stepped onto the path leading to her home, she felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't expected. She didn't know the cowboy well, but tonight he had shown her courage, kindness, and a willingness to protect her when no one else would. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. The cowboy watched her go, a quiet thought running through his mind. He didn't know what the future would hold, But he knew one thing for certain. This woman had courage, and she deserved to be protected. Something about her strength and dignity had left a mark on him, one that he couldn't easily forget. Bay. As the night fully settled over the town, the Apache woman stepped inside her home and closed the door behind her. She leaned against it for a moment, her heart still racing from the encounter. She realized that life could be unpredictable and dangerous. But moments like this, moments of bravery and trust, reminded her that hope could exist even in the darkest times. And somewhere in the shadows of the quiet town, the cowboy mounted his horse again and rode into the fading light, unaware that the small act of courage tonight would mark the beginning of a bond that neither of them would forget. The next morning, the sun rose over the small town, casting golden light across the dusty streets and the open plains beyond. The Apache woman awoke with a mixture of relief and unease. Though she had survived the danger the night before, she could not stop thinking about the cowboy who had come to her rescue. His presence had left a mark on her, a feeling she couldn't quite name. She went about her morning chores, tending to her small home and preparing food. Her movements were careful and deliberate, but her mind wandered back to the man who had risked himself to protect her. She wondered about his life, what had brought him here, and why he had acted so bravely without hesitation. Meanwhile, the cowboy rode into town thinking about the encounter as well. He was not a man who easily forgot moments of danger, especially when someone's life hung in the balance. He remembered the fear in the woman's eyes and the relief she felt when the gang had left. For him, protecting her had felt instinctive. But now, as he sipped coffee in the small diner, he found himself curious about her. The town was slowly waking up. Shopkeepers opened their stores. Children ran down the streets with laughter, and the hum of daily life filled the air. The cowboy noticed the Apache woman at the edge of town, collecting water from a well. She looked up and caught his eye, offering a small nod of recognition. He nodded back, and in that simple gesture, a silent understanding passed between them. Later that day, he found himself at the edge of her home. She had not invited him, and yet he felt drawn to check that she was safe. She opened the door cautiously, surprised to see him standing there.
"I just wanted to make sure you're all right," he said, his voice calm and genuine. "No one should have to face danger like that alone."
The Apache woman studied him, noticing the concern in his eyes.
"I appreciate it," she replied softly.
It's rare to find someone who acts without expecting anything in return. He shrugged lightly.
I guess I just couldn't stand by. You were in trouble, and I couldn't do nothing.
"You're very brave," she said. "Not everyone would do what you did."
Bay, most people would have walked away. The cowboy chuckled. Maybe, but I didn't feel like walking away. Sometimes you just have to step in. For the next few days, the Apache woman and the cowboy began to see each other more often. Their meetings were not planned, yet they seemed to occur naturally, as if fate had a hand in bringing them together. They worked together on small chores, rode horses through the open plains, and shared meals at the edge of town. With each encounter, their bond grew stronger. During one afternoon ride, the Apache woman shared stories of her childhood on the reservation. She spoke of her family, the traditions she had learned, and the struggles she had faced. The cowboy listened intently, respecting her words and her experiences. He asked questions with genuine interest, wanting to understand her world, her values, and her hopes for the future. "You have a strong heart," he said at one point, as they rode through a field dotted with wildflowers.
"Beck, not many people could face what you faced and still keep moving forward."
She looked at him, a mixture of surprise and gratitude in her eyes. "It hasn't been easy," she admitted.
"But I've learned that fear doesn't have to control me. You showed me that even yesterday." Bay. You gave me courage when I needed it most. He nodded, feeling a quiet pride. I'm glad I could help, but the courage, that was yours all along. I just reminded you of it. As the days passed, they encountered small challenges together. Sometimes the gang would reappear in the distance, testing their resolve, or townsfolk would question their friendship with curiosity and suspicion. Yet the Apache woman and the cowboy faced these moments with quiet strength, relying on each other for support. Each shared challenge brought them closer, building trust and understanding. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, they sat together on a hill overlooking the town. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of earth and flowers. Silence stretched between them, comfortable and unforced. The Apache woman finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking, she said, looking at him with a serious expression. You saved me more than once, and I feel something I can't explain. The cowboy turned to her, his expression curious. What do you mean?
She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts.
I mean that I trust you.
I feel safe with you. And I think I care for you more than I should, considering we've only known each other a short time.
He studied her, feeling the weight of her words. He had sensed a connection too, but hearing her voice confirm it stirred something deep within him. I care for you too, he admitted. I didn't expect it, but it's real. Her eyes widened slightly, and a small smile appeared on her lips. Then maybe that's why I need to say this, she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. You're my husband now. The words hung in the air between them, shocking in their clarity and boldness. The cowboy blinked, unsure how to respond.
He had expected gratitude, maybe even a spark of affection, but this declaration was unlike anything he had anticipated. You...
Specked. What? He asked finally, his voice a mixture of surprise and disbelief. I said you're my husband now, she repeated, her eyes locking onto his. Not in a legal sense, not yet. But in my heart, you've protected me, stood by me and shown me courage. I trust you and I want you by my side.
The cowboy remained silent for a moment, taking in her words.
He was not used to such declarations. Yet there was something in her tone, something genuine and unwavering, that made him consider the possibility. He could see her honesty, her trust, and her strength, and he realized that he felt the same way.
I don't know what to say, he admitted. It's
sudden. She smiled softly. I know, but it's how I feel. I couldn't wait any longer. You've become important to me in a way I can't ignore. Best. The cowboy felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had never met anyone like her before, someone so brave, so direct, and so honest about their feelings. He realized that he wanted to be by her side, not just in moments of danger, but in everyday life as well. I accept, he said finally, a small smile forming. I'll be by your side. If that's what you want, then I'll be your husband too.
Her smile widened, and for the first time in days, she felt completely at ease.
The tension that had lingered since the gang incident seemed to dissolve, replaced by a sense of hope and connection. From that moment on, their relationship began to change. They continued their daily routines, but now there was a new closeness between them. They shared stories, laughter, and even small disagreements, learning to navigate their feelings and respect each other's boundaries. Each day, they discovered more about each other, his quiet strength, her intelligence and resilience, their shared values and hopes. The town began to notice their bond as well. People whispered about the cowboy and the Apache woman, curious about the unusual friendship that had grown so quickly into something deeper. Some were skeptical, some supportive, but neither of them allowed outside opinions to affect their connection. They had faced danger together, and that shared experience had created a foundation of trust that could not be shaken. One afternoon, while working together to repair a fence near her home, they laughed at a small mistake, a post that leaned crookedly despite their best efforts. The sound of their laughter echoed across the plains, a lightness that contrasted sharply with the fear and tension of the night they had first met.
"You know," she said, wiping sweat from her brow, "I didn't expect life to be like this."
But I'm glad it is.
The cowboy nodded, his eyes meeting hers. Me too. Perfect.
I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone brave, smart, and,
real. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she smiled.
Then we're lucky, aren't we?
He smiled back.
Yes.
Very lucky.
Days turned into weeks, and their bond continued to grow. They faced small challenges together, a broken wheel, a sudden rainstorm, a lingering threat from the gang, but each obstacle only strengthened their trust and reliance on one another.
They were becoming partners in every sense, united not just by circumstances, but by choice. And through it all, the Apache woman never forgot the courage the cowboy had shown on that first night. She had declared him her husband, and in doing so, had taken a step of faith. He had accepted that step, and together they were building a bond that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun set on another day, casting a warm glow over the plains, they sat together on a hill, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. There was no need for words, just the quiet presence of two people who had found each other in a world that often seemed uncertain and dangerous.
And in that moment, they knew that their journey had only just begun.
The days after the Apache woman's bold declaration passed in a mix of warmth and quiet uncertainty. The cowboy found himself thinking about her constantly. Brad, her courage, her honesty, the way she faced danger without flinching. It all stayed in his mind. He had never met anyone like her, but... And now, with the unspoken bond forming between them, he began to feel something deeper than admiration. It was a growing sense of responsibility, care, and connection. The Apache woman, too, felt the shift. She had never expected life to move this quickly. Yet she could not deny the relief and happiness she felt, knowing the cowboy accepted her words. She had taken a risk in declaring him her husband, and his acceptance had brought a calm she hadn't known in years. Yet she knew that trust and love were not built in a single moment. They required time, effort, and patience. The challenges began almost immediately. The gang that had threatened her did not disappear entirely. Rumors of their return reached her ears from neighbors, whispered over fences and in quiet corners of town. Every sound at night, the creak of a gate, the howl of a coyote, brought a flicker of unease. She had grown strong through years of hardship, but the thought of facing them again without the cowboy at her side made her anxious. One late afternoon, the cowboy arrived at her home as the sun began its descent.
I heard the gang's been seen near the old mill, he said, dismounting his horse with careful precision. We need to be ready just in case. Her eyes met his, a mixture of worry and gratitude.
Thank you for warning me. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to do anything alone, he replied. We face this together. That evening they walked along the edge of the plains, checking the area near her home and making sure it was safe. The tension in the air was palpable, but they moved with a quiet determination. The cowboy taught her a few techniques to stay alert and protect herself, and she taught him about the land, its paths, and the natural signs of danger. But together they formed a system of trust and cooperation.
As the days passed, small incidents kept testing their resolve.
One morning, the Apache woman spotted tracks near her home that indicated someone had been there during the night. Fear tried to creep in, but she remembered the cowboy's steady presence. He arrived shortly after she discovered the tracks, assessing the situation calmly. "It's just a warning," he said, "nothing more." "But we'll stay vigilant." She nodded, feeling reassured. They spent hours checking fences, doors, and paths, ensuring that no threat could reach them. Through these moments, their bond strengthened. They learned to rely on each other, understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses. She admired his courage, his patience, and the way he made careful decisions even in stressful situations. He admired her resilience, her intelligence, and her ability to stay calm when fear threatened to take over. Despite these challenges, their relationship was not without moments of light and laughter. They shared stories over dinner, joked about small mistakes, and discovered common interests. They rode horses together, explored nearby hills, and spent quiet evenings by a fire, talking about dreams, fears, and hopes. These moments became the foundation of something lasting. Moments that reminded them both that life could hold beauty even amidst danger. One afternoon, as they repaired a section of fence that had been damaged by a storm, the Apache woman looked at him with a mix of admiration and affection. "You know," she said, "you're not just strong. You're dependable. I can count on you, and that means more than I can say." The cowboy paused, leaning on his tool. "I've learned that life is too short to stand by when someone needs help, and—"
I like being here with you. It feels...
"Right." She smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest.
It does feel right, she agreed. Even when things are hard, being together makes it easier. But the challenges were far from over.
One evening, while they were preparing dinner outside her home, a shadow moved near the edge of the plains.
The gang had returned, bold and threatening.
The tension rose instantly. The Apache woman froze for a moment, memories of past fear pressing down on her. But the cowboy's steady hand on her shoulder reminded her that she was not alone. Breaths. "Stay close," he whispered. "We can handle this." The gang stepped forward, their faces harsh and unyielding.
"Thought we'd find you alone again," one of them sneered.
The cowboy positioned himself in front of her, his stance firm and unwavering. "You'll leave now or you'll regret it," he said, his voice steady. A tense silence followed, broken only by the wind rustling the grass. The gang hesitated, clearly unsure of how to respond to his calm courage. The Apache woman stepped slightly forward, her eyes steady, showing that she would not be intimidated. Her presence, combined with his, created an unexpected strength that made the gang reconsider. Finally, the leader growled in frustration.
"This isn't over," he warned. "We'll be back."
Without another word, they retreated, leaving the plains quiet once more. The Apache woman exhaled, relief and admiration washing over her. She looked at the cowboy, realizing that their bond had not only protected them physically, but had also created a shared courage neither of them had known alone.
"You never waver," she said softly. "Even when it's scary, you stay calm."
I don't know how you do it." He shrugged lightly, a small smile appearing. Focus on what matters. And right now, what matters is you.
I'm not leaving.
Her heart swelled with gratitude and affection. In that moment, she understood that her declaration of him as her husband was more than words. It was a reflection of the trust and connection they shared. She didn't just feel protected, she felt understood, valued, and respected.
In the weeks that followed, they faced additional challenges, from sudden storms to practical problems around her home. Each trial tested their teamwork and patience, but also strengthened their relationship.
They learned to communicate more clearly, anticipate each other's needs, and offer support without hesitation. The Apache woman discovered that the cowboy's strength was not only physical but emotional. He could provide comfort, stability, and understanding when the world seemed harsh. The cowboy, in turn, grew to admire the Apache woman's independence and resourcefulness. She was not someone who needed saving at every turn. She could handle herself in many situations. Yet she allowed him to stand by her side, creating a partnership built on mutual respect and trust. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, they sat together by a fire outside her home.
The Apache woman broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what it means to be your husband," she said, her voice thoughtful.
It's not just about danger or protection. It's about trust, partnership.
Being there for each other no matter what. The cowboy nodded, staring into the flames.
That's exactly it. It's about being together, facing whatever comes our way, and knowing that we have each other's backs.
Best. She smiled softly, reaching for his hand. Then we have that. We really do. They spent hours talking that night, sharing stories of their past, their hopes for the future, and their fears. It was a conversation that deepened their connection, reminding them both that the bond they had formed was more than circumstance. It was choice, respect, and growing love. As the days turned into weeks, their partnership became stronger and more visible. Townsfolk began to notice the change in them. Whispers of admiration and curiosity followed their every action. But the Apache woman and the cowboy paid little attention. Their focus was on each other, on building a life of trust, courage, and companionship. Through every trial, whether threats from the gang, harsh weather, or practical challenges at her home, they faced life together. And with each trial, their bond grew deeper. The Apache woman began to feel a peace she had never known, a sense that she was no longer alone in a dangerous world. The cowboy, too, felt a quiet fulfillment, knowing that he had found someone who matched his courage, strength, and sense of honor. In quiet moments, they would sit together on the plains, watching the sun dip below the hills. There was no need for words. Just the steady presence of two people who had chosen each other in a world that often felt uncertain and harsh. Their partnership had become more than a promise or a declaration. It had become a living bond, tested and strengthened through action, trust, and shared courage. And as they prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, the Apache woman realized that her heart had found a home in the cowboy's steadfast presence. He was more than a protector. He was a partner, a companion, and someone she could trust completely. Together, they were ready to face the world, knowing that no matter what came their way, they would face it as one. The days grew longer, and the seasons slowly began to change. Spring was arriving, painting the plains and hills with fresh greenery and the soft scent of wild flowers. The Apache woman and the cowboy had settled into a rhythm that was both comforting and exciting. Their bond had grown stronger with every shared challenge, every quiet moment, and every laugh. They were no longer just two people who had met under dangerous circumstances. They were partners, companions, and, in their hearts, a family. Morning light spilled into her home as she prepared breakfast. The aroma of freshly baked bread and coffee filled the small space. She moved with quiet efficiency, but there was a smile on her face that spoke of contentment. She no longer felt the same tension that had plagued her before. But life was not without danger or uncertainty. But she now had someone by her side who faced the world with her, someone she could trust completely. The cowboy stepped inside, brushing dust from his boots and tipping his hat slightly. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and warm. "Smells like breakfast is ready." Bears. "You're always just in time. I'm glad you're here."
He nodded, taking a seat. I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Bet. The previous weeks had taught them the importance of vigilance, but today felt different. The sun was shining, birds filled the air with song, and the wind carried the faint smell of new grass. It was a day of peace, and they allowed themselves to enjoy it fully. As they worked together to repair a fence near the edge of the plains, the Apache woman paused and looked at him.
"You know," she said, "we've been through a lot together, and yet—"
"I feel like we've only just begun." The cowboy smiled, tightening a post. "I feel the same way. We've faced danger, yes, but I feel like we're building something stronger than anything else in my life." She nodded thoughtfully. "I never thought I'd find someone I could trust so completely, but with you, it feels right." There was a silence, comfortable and unforced, as they worked side by side. Their hands brushed occasionally, and each touch brought a small warmth that neither tried to hide. It was in these ordinary moments, repairing fences, tending the land, watching the sun set, that the depth of their connection became clear. Even the townsfolk noticed the change. People whispered about the cowboy and the Apache woman, curious about their closeness and the unusual strength of their bond. Some were surprised, others were supportive, but the two paid little attention. They were focused on each other, and the rest of the world faded into the background. One evening, as the sky turned pink and gold, the Apache woman spoke softly. "Do you ever wonder what the future holds for us?" The cowboy looked at her, his eyes steady and calm. "I do," he admitted, "but I know one thing. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. Together. I like that. Days turned into weeks, and their partnership deepened in ways both practical and emotional. They learned to anticipate each other's needs, to communicate without words, and to support each other in moments of difficulty. When storms arrived, they worked together to secure her home and protect the land. When neighbors sought their help or advice, they faced the challenges side by side, showing respect and kindness to everyone around them. Through it all, the Apache woman began to feel a peace she had never known. Her heart, once burdened by fear and uncertainty, was now open and full. The cowboy had shown her not only protection, but also respect, understanding, and love. She realized that she was no longer just surviving. She was living, truly living, with someone who valued her for who she was. The cowboy, too, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had spent much of his life navigating dangers alone, but now he had someone who matched his courage and shared his values. She was intelligent, strong, and compassionate, and he admired her in ways that went beyond words. He felt that he had found not just a partner, but someone who made his life better simply by being there. One afternoon, they worked together to plant a small garden near her home. The sun was warm, and the soil smelled rich and fresh. They laughed as they dug and planted, teasing each other gently and celebrating their small successes. The Apache woman looked at him with a smile that made his heart ache with affection. "You know," she said, "this garden, It feels like a symbol of us. We're planting something, nurturing it, and watching it grow. The cowboy nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. I like that. It's like life. Sometimes you have to work hard, but the results are worth it. As the seasons changed, their bond continued to strengthen. They faced small crises, unexpected storms, illness among livestock, minor injuries, but each challenge was met with teamwork and patience. They celebrated victories together, shared quiet moments under the stars, and laughed at the small, everyday joys that life offered. One night after a long day of work, they sat by a fire outside her home. The Apache woman leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence. I never thought I could feel this safe, this happy, she whispered. The cowboy wrapped an arm around her gently. You deserve it, he said softly. And I'll do everything I can to make sure you always feel this way. The bond they had formed was no longer just about courage or protection. It was about partnership, trust, and love. They had faced danger together, built a life together, and found joy in ordinary moments. They had learned to rely on each other, to communicate, and to respect each other's strengths and vulnerabilities. In the months that followed, the Apache woman and the cowboy began to plan for the future. They talked about expanding her home, tending the land more effectively, and perhaps even starting a family one day. Each plan was discussed with care and consideration, reflecting the deep respect and partnership that had developed between them. The town continued to notice the strength of their bond. People came to see them as a symbol of courage, loyalty, and unity. The cowboy and the Apache woman did not seek recognition, but their example inspired others, bears. Their story, one of bravery, trust, and enduring partnership, became something the community quietly admired. Through all of this, they never forgot the night that had brought them together, Barras. The memory of danger, fear, and the unexpected bravery that had saved her life remained a defining moment in their relationship. But rather than causing fear, it had created trust and connection that could not be broken. One afternoon, as they watched the sun dip behind the hills, the Apache woman spoke again. Do you remember the first night? The cowboy nodded. I'll never forget it.
She smiled softly. That night, it changed everything.
I realized I could trust you, and I wanted you in my life.
Not just as someone who protects me, but as someone I could rely on, someone I could love. His hand found hers, and he squeezed it gently. And I wanted the same. I didn't realize it at first, but now I know. I want to be with you. Always. They sat in silence for a while, the sky painted in warm colors, feeling the strength of their bond. There was no need for grand gestures or words. They had built a life together through trust, courage, and shared experiences. Their love was simple, real, and enduring. As night fell, they returned to her home, the fire crackling and stars twinkling above Bay. Life would continue to bring challenges, but they were ready. Together, they had faced danger, built trust, and nurtured love. They had chosen each other, and that choice had created a foundation that nothing could easily shake. The Apache woman rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Oh, thank you, she whispered, for everything. For saving me, for staying, for being you.
He kissed her forehead gently. Thank you.
For trusting me, for sharing your life, for letting me be part of it. In the quiet of the night, surrounded by the plains and the gentle sounds of nature, they knew that their bond would endure. They had found strength in each other, hope in each other, and love in each other. And as they looked toward the future, they felt ready to face whatever came their way. Together. No matter what challenges life would bring, they had each other. And in that truth, they found peace, happiness, and the promise of a lasting partnership that would carry them through all of life's trials.